You ever heard of Roswell? Roswell happened back in, I think, the 1930s in Roswell, New Mexico. And there was a ET crash that happened there. And very quickly, behind the government, whatever you want to call it, took that craft, took the beings that were damaged in that craft, and brought them to a facility. And then they put it on the news or the newspaper that it was a hot balloon craft crash or something really bizarre. Hot air balloon, something really weird. But it was so obvious that was some type of, and there's other people that have talked about it before, and that have worked for the government. There are whistleblowers that have talked about it, and yeah, it was a complete cover-up. And Roswell happened in the 1930s before a lot of the, if that were to happen maybe today, it'd be probably almost impossible to hide at that level. I think it still does happen where a lot of things are hidden that we're not aware of. I've heard stories of it at least, and I'll kind of share a little bit more about that. But in general, let me also share this with you. There was somebody, you may have heard me talk about this in another one of the biggest conspiracy theories I'd say is about ETs existing. And personally, I believe that us thinking we're a special snowflake in the sky and we're the only ones ever to be a life form is such an egotistical perspective that just seems very improbable in many ways. When we talk about infinite universe and we're like, we're the only ones, it just seems so egotistical. Think about that. We're the only ones that exist. And there's infinity. Okay, now let me share this. You may have heard me share this in other things before, but there's someone that I've known my whole entire life that has worked for something before, like a private corporation or something, that was completely under wraps for like a long, long time. He's now retired, much older. And he's seen and been around things before that he says I wouldn't even believe if he told me. And this is, in order for him to get into this part of whatever we call it, I don't even know, it's weird, it's the government or whatever. He had to go through so many different levels of clearance in order to get in there. He's a very eccentric thinker. I know that my dad, my mom, they both got interviewed in order for him to get in. This person that I know, it's my someone that's not actually blood related to me, but that I've known my whole entire life. And anybody that he knew, he had to be interrogated by in order for him to get into this thing. So it was like a high level clearance thing. And he worked there for like 20, 30 years. He flew 300 times a year to wherever this place was. And he said pretty much the government, they know ETs exist. They know it 100%. He says he knows that. And he was able to tell me that. Wasn't able to tell me too many details, but this is someone that I've known my whole life, someone I trust. And that to me was a big game changer when I found that out years ago, because I'm like, okay, it's then not just like this, it's not just research I've done online. I actually know someone that I trust that has validated to me that this is something that is true and something that exists. So knowing that, and then, going through and reading about Roswell, I found that very interesting. Finding out that there's, there's bases that are underground where there are private corporations. This is the funny thing. We assume and we think that these private corporations, or that we think that these things are like the government, when in actuality, many times these underground bases may be close to army bases and stuff, because they may be the ones protecting and dealing with the clearance of people getting in there, but in actuality, it's actually private corporations that are doing the research on maybe ET technology. If you ever watched Joe Rogan when he's talking to that one guy, Bill Lazar or whatever his name is, talking about how he literally worked on ET craft and reverse engineered it. That was on Joe Rogan, which is like a huge, so many people have seen Joe Rogan, and it kind of really brought some of that into the limelight. When we talk about, things like JFK, 9/11, these different things. Now, are they true or not? I don't know. I do think that I think that there's an awareness that people have, these people behind the government, whatever you call it, they have this awareness that there's a collective consciousness that we're all connected to. And if you could keep people in the dark or keep people in a certain level of consciousness, they will then not have the power. They will then just continue to go to their jobs, doing the same things every single day, be in a certain way, and because of that, they like to control the narrative. They like to control it to where people then are going to their jobs, they get home at the end of the night, they watch their 2-3 hours of television, and then they would want to normally say, oh, what is reality all about? Who am I? I don't know. I got to get up tomorrow morning at 7 in the morning. So they're like, okay, I don't have time to think about this. Keep people busy. You ever wonder why people have to work like so many hours a week? The funny thing is I work for myself, and I love what I do. I like to work more than 40 hours a week because I freaking love what I do. But a lot of people work jobs they hate, and they're so distracted by it that they don't have time to really ask the deep questions like, who am I? Why am I here? What is reality? When you start to go through a spiritual awakening, you start to kind of wake up to this. So when we talk about conspiracy theories, let's understand that there's a reason some things are hidden. And part of that reason is if you keep people in the dark, they're more easily able to be controlled. They don't ask big questions. They're more obedient. When you start to one of the things I went through when I went through I went through a phase back in 2012 where I learned meditation, and that changed my whole entire life. After about first 2 or 3 days of learning meditation, didn't really do much, but then about third or fourth day in, I started to observe my thoughts rather than try to control them, and that changed a lot about me. I started to feel different. I started to disassociate from my past. I started not to disassociate from it, but I started to understand it in a new way. I started to see it in a new way. And I started to integrate a lot of emotion that was priorly suppressed and release it. And once I did, I started to feel lighter. And then I went through and started feeling so different and wondered to myself, our thoughts create our reality and our collective thoughts as well. I think that one thing that makes kind of the content I share in my YouTube channel a little bit different than other people's content is that I really am fascinated with collective consciousness. I'm fascinated with understanding that it's not just what we think that creates our reality, but this connection that we have to other people and using kind of collective energy to create what we want, something I like to talk about. And when you look at this, there's a certain narrative that's been controlled because if you keep people in the dark, you then keep them obedient. You then keep them just kind of going through the autopilot mind and not really question. And if you pattern them in a certain way and you get them to get a negative association with conspiracy theories, then what happens is people are less likely to actually believe in them because then they're going to associate conspiracy theories with the crazy people online that are talking about conspiracy theories or whatever. The idea of crazy being the conditioned pattern response. However, I believe that there's a reason a lot of the conspiracy, we have such a negative connotation to it because they don't necessarily want us questioning our reality too much. But when I went through my awakening back in 2012, I then started questioning reality. I started to realize certain things that I could just feel to the depths of my bones that it was true, and wondering, why isn't this taught? Why is this information suppressed? And then I went through a month or two of learning about it, and I came to the conclusion that maybe not all of these things are true, but some of them definitely are. Some of them. And when you develop a level of discernment, which is also powerful, you need to have discernment. Can't believe everything you read. Even the things I'm telling you right now, I always encourage you to go within yourself, see what resonates with the inner core of your being. Meditate on it. See what resonates. Question, unravel the thought process of maybe a lot of what you used to believe to be true. And what happens is the more you do that, the more you begin to wake up to who you really are and to what really may be true in reality. Now, what happens is the more we become aware of these, the key to this is not feeding it with negative energy, feeding it with fear. When we feed things with fear, what ends up happening is we actually feed that reality. So when David Icke is doing some of his talks, while he has maybe good intentions, if people are becoming fearful of it, they're actually feeding those negative realities, and they're actually feeding that. And the key is the awareness of it, but then to continue to put your energy in it. Hope you guys enjoyed that episode on the YouTube channel. However, you have that of the actual podcast below with over 100 episodes. I've got some on plant medicine. I've got some on twin flames. I got some on a whole bunch of different stuff that I don't necessarily always share on YouTube. And you can click it below. They're completely free. You've got one on iTunes if you have an iPhone. And you also have Spotify, which makes it very easy to listen to. You make an account, but it's completely free. And I've got over 100 other episodes. Episodes go live on Tuesdays and Fridays. And like I said, it's where I put a lot of my energy these days. So if you want the deeper content like this, you can subscribe there. So with that being said, hope you enjoyed this episode. As always, peace, much love, and namaste.